Crenshaw, starting in Chapter 17. Robin was waiting for me in the hallway, sitting crisscross applesauce. Her stuffed armadillo Spot was in her lap. I took her hand and led her back to her bedroom, her rainbow nightlight painted stripes on the ceiling. I wish I had mine in my room, although I'd never admit it. I heard you talking, she said as she crawled under her blanket. Sometimes I talk to myself. That's kind of weird, Robin yawned. Yeah, I said, tucking her in. It is. You promised Lyle, she reminded me. I'd been hoping she'd forgotten. Yep. He's in my keepsakes bag. I rummaged around in the brown paper bag. A bald doll poked out of the top, sizing me up with blank, beady eyes. Scooch over, I said. Robin made room for me on her mattress. I opened the book. Its pages were soft, its cover tattered. Robin, I asked, have you ever had an imaginary friend? You mean like invisible? Invisible, yeah, like that. Nope. Really? Never? Nope. I have Lysandra and Jimmy and Kylie, and sometimes Josh when he's not being a boogerhead. They're real, so I don't need to pretend. I flipped through the pages of the book. But sometimes, when you're alone. I paused. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to ask. Like, say you're home and you don't have any friends over, and you really need to talk to someone who will listen. Not even then? Nope, she smiled. 'Cause anyways, I have you. It made me happy to hear her say that, but somehow it wasn't quite the answer I'd been hoping for. I opened to the first page. This is the house on East 88th Street. It's empty now. Like our house, Robin interrupted. Only we live in an apartment. True. Jax, Robin said softly, remember when we lived in the minivan for a while? Do you really remember that? You were just little. Kinda. I remember, but not really. Robin made Spot do a little dance on her blanket. But you told me about it, so I was wondering. Wondering what? Spot performed a black flip. Wondering if we're going to have to live there again, because where would we go to the bathroom? I couldn't believe it. Robin was just a kid. How had she figured out so much? Did she spy on her parents the way I did? Robin sniffled. She wiped her eyes with Spot. I realized she was crying without making any noise. I miss my things, and I don't want to live in a car with no potty. And also my tummy keeps growling, she whispered. I knew what to tell her. She needed to hear the facts. We were having money problems. We were probably going to have to leave our apartment. We might even end up back in our minivan. There was a good chance she'd have to leave all her friends behind. I put my arm around Robin, hugged her close. She looked up at me. Her eyes shimmered. You need to tell the truth, my friend. Don't be ridiculous, I said. We can't live in our car. Where would we put popsicles? Besides, Aretha and Dad snore like crazy. She laughed just a little. You worry too much, girl. Everything's fine. I promise. Now let's get back to Lyle. Another sniffle, a nod. Hey, fun fact about crocodiles, I said. Did you know that a bunch of them in the water is called a float? Robin didn't answer. She was already sound asleep, snoring softly. Me, I couldn't sleep. I was too busy remembering. Part 2. Mashed potatoes are to give everybody enough. A hole is to dig. The first book of definitions, written by Ruth Krauss and illustrated by Maurice Sendak. I guess becoming homeless doesn't happen all at once. My mom told me once that money problems sort of sneak up on you. She said it's like catching a cold. At first, you just have a tickle in your throat, and then you have a headache, and then maybe you're coughing a little. The next thing you know, you have a pile of Kleenexes around your bed, and you're hacking your lungs up. Maybe we didn't become homeless overnight, but that's what it felt like. I was finishing first grade. My dad had been sick. Mom had lost her teaching job, and all of a sudden, bam, we weren't living in a nice house with a swing set in the backyard anymore. At least that's how I remember it. But like I said before, memory is weird. It seems like I should have thought to myself, whoa, I'm going to miss my house and my neighborhood and my friends and my life. But all I remember thinking was how much fun living in our minivan was going to be. Chapter 19. We moved out of our house right after first grade ended. There was no big announcement, no goodbye party. We just sort of left, the way you abandon your desk at the end of the school year. You clean it out, but if you leave a few pencils and an old spelling test behind, you don't have to worry about it too much. You know the kid who has your desk next fall will take care of things. My parents didn't own a lot of stuff, but they still managed to fill our minivan. You could hardly see out the windows. I saved my pillow and backpack to load last. I was putting them onto the rear seat when I noticed something odd. Someone had left the back windshield wiper on, even though it was a sunny day. No rain, no clouds, no nothing. Back, forth, back, forth. My parents were packing odds and ends in the house, and Robin was with them. I was all alone. Back, forth, back, forth. I looked closer. The wiper was long and awfully hairy. It looked a lot more like a tail than a windshield wiper. I leapt out and ran to the rear. I saw the dent in the fender from the time my dad backed into a shopping cart at Costco. I saw the bumper sticker my mom had used to cover the dent. It said, "I brake for dinosaurs." I saw the windshield wiper, but it wasn't moving, and it wasn't hairy. And right then I knew, the way you know that it's going to rain long before the first drop splatters on your nose, that something was about to change. When the minivan was packed, we stood in the parking lot. Nobody wanted to get in. "Why don't I drive, Tom?" said my mom. "You were in a lot of pain this morning." "I'm fine," my dad said firmly. "Fit as a fiddle," whatever that means. My mom strapped Robin into her car seat, and we climbed into the minivan. The seats were hot from the sun. "It's only for a few days," said my mom, adjusting her sunglasses. 2 weeks tops," said my dad. "Maybe 3 or 4. We just need to catch up a little." My mom was using her "there's nothing wrong" voice, so I knew something was really wrong. "Pretty soon we'll find a new apartment." "I liked our house," I said. "Apartments are nice too," said my mom. "I don't get why we can't just stay." "It's complicated," said my dad. "You'll understand when you're older, Jackson," said my mom. "Play Wiggles," Robin yelled, squirming in her car seat. She loved the Wiggles, a group that wrote silly songs for kids. "First a little hitting the road music, Robin," said my dad. "Then Wiggles." He slipped a CD into the car player. It was one of my mom and dad's favorite singers. His name was B.B. King. My mom and dad like a kind of music called blues. In a blues song, somebody's sad about something, like maybe they broke up with their girlfriend, or they lost all their money, or they missed a train to a faraway place. But the weird thing is, when you hear the songs, you feel happy. Dad makes up lots of crazy blues songs. Robin's favorite was "Ain't No PB in My PB&J." Mine was called "Downside Up Vampire Bat Boogie," about a bat who couldn't sleep upside down like bats are supposed to do. I'd never heard the B.B. King song my dad had chosen to play. It was about how nobody loved this guy except his mother. "What does he mean about how even his mom could be jiving him, Dad?" I asked. "Jiving means lying. It's funny, see, because your mom and dad always love you. Except when you don't floss," said my mom. I was quiet for a while. "Do kids always have to love their mom and dad?" I asked. I caught my dad's reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked back at me with a question in his eyes. "Put it this way," he said. "You can be mad at someone and still love them with all your heart." We pulled out of the driveway. Aretha sat between Robin and me. She was only a few months old and still had her puppy-soft fur and clumsy paws. Our neighbor, Mr. Sarah, was cutting yellow roses from his garden. We had already said official goodbyes. He waved, and we waved back like we were going on our way to the Grand Canyon or Disney World. "Does Mr. Sarah have a cat?" I asked. "A really big cat?" "Just Mabel," my mom answered. "The Chihuahua with an attitude. Why?" I glanced back at the rear windshield, but it was blocked by boxes and bags. No reason," I said. My dad cranked up the volume on B.B. King, who was still pretty sure nobody loved him, including his mom. Aretha cocked her head and howled. She liked to sing along, especially to blues songs, although she liked the Wiggles too. We drove a few blocks. My lower lip quivered, but I didn't cry. Mom sighed softly. "Let the adventure begin," she said. If you ever have to live in your car, you're going to have some problems with feet, especially if you're stuck in there with your little sister and your mom and your dad and your puppy and your imaginary friend. There are many kinds of feet problems. Stinky dad feet, the magic marker smell of nail polish on your mom's toes because she says she still wants to look nice, so please just deal with it. Sister feet kicking you just as you're falling asleep. The scratchy surprise of dog feet trying to wake you up. Imaginary friend feet tiptoeing on your head. I thought hard about the feet problem. Finally, I came up with a plan. What's the worst that can happen is how I figured it. What I did is I took a chalkboard TV box we found behind Walmart. I smushed it flat. I drew on the outside of the box and the inside, too. I only had 3 markers, and one dried out when the cat fell under the back seat. So it was mostly just red dogs with blue eyes and blue cats with red eyes. I put stars on the inside. They seemed like a good thing to think about before you went to sleep. I wrote "Kept out Jackson's room" on the top. Mom said, "Too bad we had to leave our dictionary behind." Dad said, "If only it was real rum." Every night I opened up my box and slipped my sleeping bag inside it. When I crawled inside, I felt like a caterpillar in a cocoon. It was almost like my old room where I could think about without anyone bugging me. When Robin kicked me in her sleep, she hit the box, which is not exactly the same as kicking me. Unfortunately, Aretha liked to sleep with me, so it could get a little dog breathy. Also, the box didn't help much with the stinky dad feet. I knew we were lucky because we had our old Honda minivan, which had lots of room. I met a kid who lived for a whole year in one of those VW cars. He was red and round like a ladybug and just about as tiny. The poor kid had to sleep sitting up, squished between his two little sisters. Another reason we were lucky was because my sleeping box was just decoration. Some people actually live in boxes on the street. I wasn't looking on the bright side. It's better to have a big car than a little one when you are living in it, and it's better to have a box in a car than a box on a street. Those were just facts. I wasn't like my dad, who kept saying we weren't homeless. We were just car camping.